All right, bam, Sarah, how's it going?
I'm exhausted.
Really?
I'm supposed to say, oh, I'm good, I'm great, thanks. But no, I'm exhausted.
No, yeah.
Exhausted, but good.
Your schedule's been
exhausted, but good.
off the
Exhausted,
chains.
but good.
Yeah. You think this busyness has something to do with your campaign?
Yeah, obviously. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's everything to do with my campaign. It's not something that happens all the time. I'm not always this exhausted, but this campaign that's going on, it's been going on since November, December, but especially so since January is very, very exhausting because it's like an everyday thing. And more than that, it's having to juggle. It's not even balancing. It's juggling so many things at the same time. So that's what causes the mental exhaustion. See, the physical exhaustion, I can deal with that, but it's the mental exhaustion that adds on top of it that really, really makes it exhausting. And so it's balancing being a member of parliament, aka people's representative, and running again, and being a wife, a mom of two very young boys. So all of that, really, and of course the presidential campaign as well. So, and having to be a spokesperson for, so it's like 5 things going on at the same time.
Yeah. Well, for those who don't know, Sarah is currently the member of parliament for which district again?
Central Java, fourth district of Central Java, which is Seragen Karanganyar Wonogiri. But I am now currently running in a new district. That's why, so I'm not running as an incumbent. I'm actually running in the new district in Jakarta 3, which is West Jakarta, North Jakarta, and the Thousand Islands.
Wow. As you know, Jakarta is a big city with a big population. And
Absolutely.
how have you been going into the field and meeting people? What's your campaign activities
my
like?
campaign's been like I can go to it's a bit crazy actually, and we need to change it, and so I'm taking a little bit of a break this week to just regroup and sort out my schedule for the next 20 days or so. Mainly it's so tough because for the past couple of months or so we've been just accepting every single kind of invitation we get. So I can be going to about like 5-6 different locations a day. And you can imagine if in the morning, for example, I have a 9 o'clock thing in West Jakarta, and then I have to go to North Jakarta, and then I have to go to represent the presidential campaign camp, at an event as a spokesperson in South Jakarta, and then I have to go all the way again to North Jakarta and then to West Jakarta. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Jakarta traffic, it can be, it's a challenge, and it's one thing if you're just sleeping in the car, but when you're trying to respond to every single WhatsApp message that comes in, that's so you get tired. But I try to sleep in the car, I do, but it's a bit tougher now trying to keep up with the social media as well, and that the only time you can really do it is while you're in the car. And when we're talking about what do I do specifically, I mean, I do the door-to-door, I do canvassing, and I also do meets. I go to meets where we meet with 200 or 150 people, and just talk really, and talk about what we're fighting for, what we want to be different in the future, and why we're running, that kind of thing. And I do a lot of those with my running mates. And what I mean are, there's DPR-RI, so there's like the national level, which I'm running for, and then there are those who are running below or on another level, which is for the provincial level. So
Right.
I go around with them just to ensure that people understand, first of all, that there's the national level and then there's the provincial level.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excuse me.
And now that you're an elected member of parliament, I was wondering whether your constituents can still contact you and, to raise their concerns. How do people reach you?
So I make it clear to them that it's impossible for me to be the one to answer every single request or every single phone or WhatsApp that comes my way. So usually I give them my team member's number. And so until now, it's still actually very easy for them to get in touch with me if they just contact my team members. So, and that's the other thing with Indonesia is that it's nobody's running as an independent. You're running in a party. So if for example you are the member or you are the representative from that district, it's very important to keep good relationship with the structure, the structural of the party, the political party, and usually people then know to get in touch with you through them. So that's there are many ways people can contact me, and some of them actually contact me directly on social media. They'll send me a message, and again, I mean, I'm grateful not all of them demand that, like, hey, you haven't read my message yet. It's like, I mean, there are some that are like that, but most of them are very patient because obviously they know I don't necessarily read all my messages all the time.
Yeah. Let's flash back to like maybe 10 years ago. Have you always envisioned yourself that you were going to be a politician? And
Absolutely
what was
not.
Sarah doing maybe 10 years ago? Like
I wasn't even thinking of going into politics 7 years ago. I mean, now I've been in as a member of parliament for about 5 years, but I before 2013, because I did make the decision to run in February of 2013. But before that, I was, people ask me, are you going to go into politics? Are you going to run? And I always answer, heck no way. And, in Indonesian, I'd be like, heck no. The reason being is because I was one of those very green and very naive, idealistic, stars in my eyes kind of young woman who thought that politics is just so dirty, it's so dark, it's such a it's like I thought of myself as being allergic to politics. I mean, I even used those words. I did. I would explain to people, I'm sorry, but I'm allergic to politics because I can't lie the way these people do. I mean, they say, oh, I promise to give you A, B, C, and then you'll be lucky if you get Z. Most of the time you get nothing at all. You don't get anything close to what they promised you in terms of the programs and everything. So I didn't want to get involved in politics. I was very much just very anti. But things changed, and in February 2013, I got my calling from God, and I decided, okay, well, why not? It's not, and I made clear, I made it clear that this wasn't my fight. I wasn't going in it for myself, and it wasn't for a position. I mean, I didn't even think I was going to run again, honestly. It was just like, okay, let's go and do this and see if we can make a difference from within the system, because by 2013, I already had my own foundation that's focused on the fight against human trafficking. I mean, that was my passion since 2009, and my passion and my calling. And I thought that, okay, well, maybe God is calling me to go into politics, as in like active politics, to make a change from the inside, and so here I am now. Wow.
And let me just check the equipment. Okay, it's all good.
Yes, I do tend to talk a lot. You have to be careful about giving members of parliament microphones. We tend to talk a lot, okay?
No,
you might have to stop
love
us
to hear your story, What are the besides human trafficking? What have you been vocal about in the parliament? Like some bills where you're passionate about?
So in parliament, especially I'm in the 8th commission, and that's to do with social affairs, religious affairs, women and children. So we passed the People with Disabilities Act, and so we had that law. in place, thank God, passed in 2016. And so that was something that I was very proud of that we had accomplished, because it was a long time in waiting. And of course, I've been very vocal of things to do with women and children, especially when it comes to the funds, as in the budget, the national budget, which is very low right now. In comparison to the Social Affairs Ministry, for example, this year that's getting 56 or 59, I might get the numbers wrong, trillion rupiah. The Ministry for Women Empowerment and Children's Protection is only getting 500 billion rupiah. So that's like a very low number. It's astounding, and that's something that I feel I've been a broken record, so to speak. I've been a broken record, advocating for this, and unfortunately it's not in the current administration's priorities, and therefore that's why it's been very difficult to fight for that. And I'm also in several working groups and several special groups that deal with some, like we oversee the issue of our workers that are working abroad, for example, and it's we can say a lot of things, but unfortunately, being an activist, it can feel very frustrating because of how slow things go. I mean, as a member of parliament, you really only represent the people by, you tell the executives to do things, but whether or not they're going to do it, it's up to them. And then it gets very frustrating when that they could do a much better job, and yet you're not part of the government to do something about it. So that's what's been frustrating. But those are some of the things that I've been very vocal about. And right now we're working on, myself personally, and my colleagues in the 8th Commission, we're working on 2 other bills. One is for the social workers. We actually don't have currently a standard or a qualification or even a national framework and an umbrella for our social workers. And we're also working on the sexual abuse eradication bill. So those 2 are 2 of the things we're working on.
Wow.
And children's protection, that's also very specific. And I think that we need to, if it's not going to be done before the end of this term, then hopefully in the next term, if I do get elected again, my friends and I are committed to, my colleagues and I are committed to do a revision of the Children's Protection Act, or the law.
Wow. That's really cool, because a lot of the headlines from politics we get is sometimes from business or from non-social side, and it's great to see you fighting economy, business, commerce. It's great to see someone fighting these kind of causes actively in legislation.
Thanks.
What do you think the role of women in politics have participation been going up since since the last 10 years?
That's the thing, right? I mean, this is a very interesting. I'm glad you asked me this, because this is a very, very interesting discussion on women participation and representation. I mean, those are 2 different things. Well, first of all, in terms of women participation in politics, I feel that now there are a lot of, especially with the partai emak-emak and all that, like we have a term for women who are, like these moms who are now like picking up the fight, and they're doing things, and they're making videos and ads. I mean, you can tell they're just doing it out of because they want to, and it's great. So you're seeing these women actually picking up the fight. They're taking on, and they're carrying torches, and that's fantastic to see, because we do need more women for sure who are not afraid to get their hands dirty, so to speak. But in terms of women representation, female representation, it doesn't translate right now because of a few things. Number one, politics. In terms of the politics, we're talking about policies, and we're talking about how at the moment our affirmative action only states 30% requirement for candidates running for parliament, but it doesn't say 30% seats. So right now we only have 17 to 18% women in parliament, okay, in the House of Rep. And I always say this to my fellow women activists, who are fighting the good fight and fighting for women representation. I tell them, we really do need to pay a lot more attention to the quality of women we want to represent us, because of the way things are at the moment. Unfortunately, sometimes it's people are so focused on the quantity of women rather than the quality. And so I've had the displeasure not pleasure, but the displeasure of working alongside women who have no idea about issues that they're fighting for. They're really just there to be a representative, but they're not really representing. And unfortunately, I've had bad experiences, I guess, and where I've had to speak up just to cover up for them, so it's I mean, I'm not blaming necessarily their point of view, but the problem is that they didn't have a point of view, and they would just be talking just for talking's sake. So this is my personal experience, and so I always tell my friends, the activists who are fighting for female representation, that we need to pay closer attention. We need to have bigger budget, and we need to make sure that the political parties and the Women Empowerment and Children Protection Ministry work together. And so between the public sector and the political parties, they need to work together to ensure that our women, especially those who are running for House of Rep, are trained, are knowledgeable. At the very least knowledgeable, and have gender perspective. Okay, just because she's a woman doesn't necessarily mean that she has gender perspective, and that's based on my experience, and it's frustrating. It's absolutely frustrating, and so we have a long way to go. We do. So the first thing was politics. The second thing is economy. So right now, and I always say this, so, again, broken record, until we put a cap on the maximum, put a maximum spending on how much we can actually spend on our campaign, and until we get to the point where the people actually say no to money politics, we'll always have the problem and the issue of the people who get voted in are unfortunately those who have money but don't necessarily understand issues or even have a good point of view on them. So that goes not just for the men, that also goes for the women. I mean, we are getting women who don't necessarily have a clear understanding of what they're fighting for. And then the third thing is culture. And what I mean by culture is because in Indonesia, like many countries, even in the States, we still have a patriarchal society, where in order for us to be able to do anything, it's not written in the law, but it's in the culture. It's it's unsaid that you need the approval of your husband, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, in a lot of religions, you do look at the husband as the decision maker of the family. But when it comes to patriarchal culture, it also means that a lot of women don't have the financial capacity to run for office, and so a lot of the times they would need the backing or the support of their husband, their father, their friends, because a lot of women are not as financially secure as a man would be. And especially those who are still young and those who are just married with children, young children. And I'm feeling it now where, if I were running now when I have two very young children, I think the rhetoric would be very different, because when I was running in 2014, I was still single. I would go around morning to evening. Nobody would really care. They would think like, oh, that's good. You need to do that. But now I'm a mom. There would be questions of like, oh, how are you balancing your time?
Right.
Between being a mom and how are your children feeling? Like, do they ever say like, oh my gosh, mommy, like, why do we never see you? And it's like, well, what if it's like a man who is running? You hardly ask a man whether or not like, oh, how are you with your children?
Right.
Like, how are you dealing and balancing your time as a father and as a,
Yeah.
So unfortunately, we still have those kind of mentality
And stigma or that assumptions, right?
Perception,
Yeah.
assumption,
Yeah.
stereotypes, discrimination.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I can totally understand, how women are they can be very excellent at what they do. Like I remember my mom, she's a businesswoman.
Right.
I grew up seeing her like in her cosmetics business, and she's like an alpha woman. She's on the ball.
Dragon mom.
Yeah, mate, perhaps. Actually, Kill Bill reminds me of my mom a lot.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, but
I wouldn't go that far.
yeah, Uma Thurman.
You're very tough on your mom.
but when one has found their calling, it's
Yeah.
really amazing
Oh, no,
to be in the zone and stuff. And
Your mom's one of those like she's a go-getter, right?
yeah,
I would say.
yeah, yeah.
She's a go-getter. That's like the positive way
She gets
of
it.
saying it. If a man is being said as being ambitious, right? Then that's like a positive thing. But a lot of the times when a woman is being ambitious, it's like looked at negatively. So, hello,
Yeah, the
gender
world needs to learn.
discrimination.
The world needs to learn. The world needs to learn.
Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be where you are today if it weren't also for your mom
Totally.
being who she is, right?
Totally.
That's,
Yeah, that's
so
very true.
go Dragon Moms.
It's very true.
I'm definitely
Shout
one
out
of those.
to all the dragon moms out there. You're doing a great job.
Exactly. It's okay. It's okay. I feel you. My children, a lot of people actually look at my children, they're like, wow, they're all daddy's boys. I'm like, yeah. And I was like, it's very different. The way they treat you, the way they treat the father, like, I know. Like, the father's there to play with them. And then mommy comes and, she's the one putting down the fear of God in you, And I'm like, I look at it as it's my responsibility to bring them up as future leaders. They are, so I think a lot of moms actually, they're like, oh, he's my baby, and all that. But no, for me, I'm like, you're a future leader. You do not, no. You better know how to treat women. You better know how, to work hard and all. I'm blessed. My kids are amazing.
Yeah, I think you're setting up a great example.
I hope so.
Yeah. There are a lot of artists coming into the campaign, like former TV anchors and stuff. And,
Right.
And I don't know if a lot of people know, but you also were active in the feature film.
Yeah.
You played in some movies and
Yeah.
you were a model
I-
and stuff. Like, how did you transition?
This is a very good question. I see a lot of people actually ask the question, not transition, but they're like, oh, how do you find your experience being an actress useful as a politician? And the answer to that is easy enough. It's being used to speaking in public, performing, and that helps when it comes to and reading a room, reading an audience, and how they're, especially if you're doing a lot of improv and if you're doing theater, it helps you with your public speaking and with going on the road. But the transition, I suppose, is and it still is sometimes. It's very difficult to let go of my passion of acting. You know, I mean, I whenever people ask me, I'm like, I'm still an actress. It's just I'm not working right now. But I always think of myself as an actress. It's just right now it's about priority, and the priority is, you know, so it's about putting things in boxes in my head and in my soul. You know, it's like, okay, well, we're still an actress and we're still working on making sure that there are great movies being produced and putting Indonesia on the international map. So I'm very passionate about that. I still am driven towards putting my country on the international map of entertainment and movies and all that. So I still do that on the side, but I'm not acting, you know. I mean, I did a few productions for fun, but you know, the only challenge is to find the right time. So it's not that we can't do it, it's just finding the right time. Right. So I think it's just a matter of putting things in boxes and prioritizing and saying which one that is our focus at the moment.
Great. Well, I want to segue into the few decades before you went to politics, when you were abroad. And you grew up where in certain. Can you elaborate where?
Sure.
Which schools you went to?
For middle school or junior high, I went to Singapore, UWCSA, United World College, Southeast Asia, and then I went to Switzerland. That was actually the longest.
Where in Switzerland?
In Geneva. I went to Collège du Léman, CDL. And so I graduated high school there, and then I went to University of Virginia, where I studied drama and classics. So my family's big on history, and I mean, we get it from our father, because my dad's, we always joke about this. If he didn't go into business, if he didn't go into politics, he would have been a professor of history. I mean, the guy, in his especially younger days, he's a sponge. I mean, even until now, he remembers so many different things. I mean, he just loves learning, and he's like a sponge, and I think that he would have made a great professor of history. Right. But my passion in history is the ancient history, so classical civilizations. I'm, in Greece and Rome and all that. So that's what I majored in before I went to London. So I didn't finish my degree because I went to London to pursue my passion in acting, and I went to acting school in London.
Oh, and how long was the acting school?
I was only there the acting school was a postgraduate program, so it was I got accepted into the postgraduate program. It was only 1 year.
Yeah. For someone who has a lot of inspirations and cultural exposure to the world, like I remember. You introduced me to Bollywood movies and the songs. You remember? We were
Bollywood.
Dancing to like some songs. I think it's really cool. But, how do you become a sponge that makes yourself like open-minded to whatever you want to do afterwards? How do you apply these inspirations into your work?
I think especially when you're a student of history, and anthropology, and actually. I was this close to being an archaeologist. So if if my dad were to be a professor of history, I would have actually been an archaeologist.
Wow.
So I was this close. I was gonna do it. I was gonna go on digs and everything and discover our past history. But I think, especially if or a student of life, if you're a student of life, you're open to learning. You're open to learning new things, and I think that opens up to new worlds, and it all starts by I think our love of reading. When you love reading, you love delving into new worlds, and then language. When you're learning new languages, that also opens up worlds of cultures for you, and so. For me, being a sponge and being always interested in learning new things it's endless. That's, it's like until you're 80, until you're 90, you're open to new things. And I think that's what we need. We need more of that. We need more of, I'm not saying more of me, okay? I'm saying more of the desire and the interest to learn about new things, because a lot of what with what happened in New Zealand and so many hate crimes happening all over the world, I couldn't sleep, honestly. That evening I almost couldn't sleep. I was up until 3 a.m. because I was just like, it's crazy how, because people are afraid. It all starts with fear of things that you don't understand, fear of things that you are, fear of the unknown. And from that fear and from that uncomfortableness that people feel, they turn it into hatred, and they're like, oh, we don't know this, it's it's not something that they don't look like me, they don't talk like me, they don't think like me, and therefore they're just like, they shouldn't be around. I mean, that's like, I don't know, that's psychopathic thinking. And so we do need more global citizens, people who are so, and that's what I tell my friends, and I tell my nieces, I tell, from my cousins, okay, not from my brother, but from my cousins. I mean, my nieces, my nephews, I tell them, you know what, before you get married, before you settle down, travel the world. Travel, see the world, see what it's like. Because when you get exposed to new cultures, you get to really see the country. No matter how uncomfortable it makes you feel, but at least you see them. These are people. These are human beings. They just have a different way of living, or they have a different way of looking at things, and it doesn't make them bad. It doesn't make them, so just don't fear it, And I think it all starts with dialogue as well. So I think having been exposed to different cultures and different way of looking at, and I was even, actually, trivia, I was a professor's assistant in University of Virginia for the, basically it's called trauma and healing, and we discuss about racism, we talk about sexism, we talk about all sorts of trauma that, whether individuals or societies go through or have gone through. So that was also a big eye-opening for me on what people actually like, whether or not we realize it. I think a lot of us are racist in some ways, sexist in some ways, because it's we don't do it. Like, we don't do it consciously. It's in our subconscious, and it does take a lot of awareness, and it needs to be brought up to our consciousness for us to kind of go, oh, so that's not good, or that's not something I should think, or I should say.
Yeah. Do you think this consciousness has been like emanating towards the negative side, or has it been going towards the other way? From
no
your
matter what people say about how things are going in Indonesia, I honestly think that we're going in the right direction. We are, and bear with me on this. The conflict so far in Indonesia has been kind of segregated. It's been like, it's happening in Ambon, it's happening in, Borneo, Kalimantan. Now that it's, entered into the whole, political spectrum, in the national stage, I'm not saying we should have gotten about it or this route. I'm not saying that at all, and I still regret a lot of the things that are being said, but I think that dialogue is very important. And
between who?
For civilization in general. And I'm talking about, like, because to my friends in America, it's, like,
global.
Look at how things are going over there, because it's still a work in progress. You thought, for me who lived there for a couple of years, to think that, I mean, I was in Charlottesville. University of Virginia is Charlottesville, and you know, we take a look at what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia, with the whole march and everything, and it's just, it's like mind-boggling. It's like, wow, like where did all this, like, you know, progress go?
Yeah.
But it's progress, you know. It's there are going to be days when it's going to be bad days, and there are going to be days when it's good days. There are going to be days when people are more open to talk about it with each other, and there are going to be days when people are not. And here in Indonesia, we're taking our first steps, I think, towards really openly discussing what is actually happening in our country. How is it going are we liking the direction it's going? A lot of people already made up their minds and say, we don't like it. We don't like it, you know. But at the same time, if we're talking about tolerance, true tolerance needs to, in my opinion, needs to be where we treat others the way we want to be treated, you know. But it doesn't mean that others are going to treat you the way you want to be treated.
Right.
It just means you're in charge of how you act and how you feel and how you see other people. And
how we react to whatever it is
absolutely,
the communication brings
absolutely.
us to. Yeah.
If you fight, you know, bullying by bullying, if you fight hatred with hatred, I mean, everybody knows that's not the way you get kindness. You know, it just needs to start with you, and the conversation and the dialogue does need to take place, because a lot of the times, and especially now in the age of social media allows people to say mean things to other people without feeling that they need to take responsibility for it. And this is what's dangerous. But if the dialogue can somehow take place and you get people in the same room where they are from different backgrounds, they feel this way, and if you just get them all in the same room, I'm of the opinion that if you can get them to start talking to each other and figuring out what the commonalities are between them, what similarities are between them, rather than focusing on the differences, then we're going to get somewhere. And then if you can get them to go from, okay, we're both human beings, or okay, we're all
creatures on the same planet,
through trauma. We've all gone through this, you know, and you find, I think there's like, it was online one time. I think it was from one of the European countries. They did a very good ad about you know, differences or something like that, and I think there's one out there. But I think that's where we need to start with, and then once we know that we have similarities, then we can start openly talking about the differences and be like, without taking offense, without, you know, taking it personally, where this is how I feel, this is how I'm brought up, this is how I think about this, and these are my points of views. It's the same thing as, like, you know, when you're talking about pro-life and, you know, pro-choice, you know, very sensitive issues like that. You know, it's about dialogue, and it's about respecting people's choices, but at the same time being strong with your own convictions.
Totally.
You know.
Yeah.
And I think people need to be okay with other people having strong convictions about, you know, about things that are different from, you know, from you, and we're not there yet. We have a long way to go, but I think we're getting somewhere.
Yeah, I agree that we should find the commonalities and embrace differences, and that's the only way we can move forward together. Yeah.
Find commonalities, embrace the differences.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, talking about difficult topics, there's the Me Too movement in the US. You know, women are,
I love that,
you know, coming out and telling their stories.
Yeah.
And in Indonesia, I don't know whether there are many stories. I'm sure people are getting, you know, harassed at work. If there are women who are...
Statistics actually say that 1 in 3 women in Indonesia have experienced some kind of physical or sexual harassment or abuse.
Wow. 1 in 3 is a lot. But what I was going to ask is, if what would you say to women who are undergoing through those kind of experience? Where can they go? What can they do?
There's actually a very good group where they meet every. Let me find it. Yay, social media. Oh yeah, they're actually called Lentera Indonesia. So it's so if you want to, let me find the yeah. So for those of you who have Instagram, if you need a place where you need to meet or you need to talk to survivors of abuse, of anything like that, it's called Lentera Sintas Indonesia. The Instagram is at lentera_ID, lentera_id. And there's one of those, and then there's also Komnas Perempuan, and there's P2 TP2A. These are all like centers and institutions that you can go to,
right?
To report or just to talk about what happened to you, and I think it's so important for those of us who have gone through any kind of abuse to speak up. We're not there yet where we can openly say without fear of stigma or just discrimination and all that. So we need to get there. That's also another big challenge for this country.
Yeah. Where are times where you overcame your setbacks in life, where you overcome your own challenges, where you didn't trust yourself but you made it happen? What are some of your like stories where you succeed where you thought you once would fail?
Gosh, even now. Even now. No, I mean there are many times. Well, I mean, I remember the one time in 2014, in January, so the election was in April. In January, I just felt I wanted to quit. Because, when you're an idealist and you're running for House of Rep, you bring a team, right, to this district, and you're hoping that wherever you're placed, wherever you're running in, you can bring a difference, like a positive difference. But at that time, there was an internal problem. Someone I trusted to be the head of my campaign team was not doing what I was hoping he would do, and there were a lot of internal struggles, and it was that at that point when I felt, okay, oh my gosh, like I'm not bringing positivity, I'm actually bringing stress and negativity to these people, and that was the one time I wanted to quit at that time, but by God's grace I kept going, and even now, and why I said even now is because it happens so often this time, because this time it's so clear the sacrifices that I'm making, the choices that I'm making in order to keep going in this campaign, because I leave the house before or after my sons, especially the youngest one, wake up and he's gone to school, and I come home and he's already asleep, so he's starting to forget what his mom looks like, and these are not easy sacrifices, and there are many times when I felt I just wanted to quit, because this is just I keep asking, is it worth it? So we're not immune to that, and being a survivor of depression, I had depression when I was 15 till I was 21, so it was during those basically very tough times of high school and college. It's about mindset, and it's about faith, and I can honestly say, if it weren't for God, if it weren't for my faith, I would probably still be taking medication right now to deal with my depression, but I got over it. And so I mean, those were the times when whenever I thought that, oh my gosh, whenever I was suicidal and all that, like those were the times when I feel like if I can get through those times, then I can get through these times. And these times are a lot easier simply because, I'm not like fighting against myself. It's more about choices. And I'm not saying those are any easier. They're definitely not. And I'm not saying that, the choices that you make, and if there's anything that I would say is that there's no right or wrong choices. Of course, there are right and wrong. You would know what those are, or you should learn. But if it's just between two things, it's nothing to do with right or wrong. It's sometimes it's just choice, and you go with what brings you the most peace. And so that's what keeps me going is if I'm meant to just keep going this way, then I'll keep going this way. But if God wants me to stop and get me to go another way, then it'll happen. And I just have to have faith in that, and that's what brings me peace. And I think a lot of the time to overcome anything, it's about making decisions, and then it's about being at peace with it.
Wow.
So it's a conscious decision. It needs to be a conscious decision where you go, I need to be okay with whatever choice I make.
Yeah. I think you touched on a very powerful thing, faith, and faith has definitely also helped me go through my rough patches. And I know that it's an important part of our lives.
Yeah.
We happen to go to same church. Actually, you were one of my biggest inspirations to go to our church. I was looking at your Instagram. Yeah, I haven't got the chance to tell you. I was at the time when I was looking for church, and I saw you were very active there, and you really like it there. I can see like genuinely, it has an impact on you, and I'm glad to say that it definitely had an impact on me.
Oh, that's good.
How's church life has been like? For those who don't know, where is our church again?
You can say it. We go to JPCC, Jakarta Praise Community Church. We have great pastors, Pastor Jeffrey Rahmat, Pastor Jose Carroll.
Excellent.
And the many other pastors. Sorry, we're not going to name you one by one, but you're all great.
Thank you.
I'm glad that, honestly, I'm glad that you're blessed by that church. I mean, as am I. Your question?
Yeah, I see you singing in church as well.
Right. And believe me, there were times when I wanted to quit as well. I actually did one time. I actually wrote to Pastor Jeffrey and I said, I'm sorry, I'm quitting. Like, I can't do this.
Did he say no? What did he say?
He just said, well, I don't agree with you. I was like, okay. So...
what do you do when
oh my god, he's great that way. He's like no, this is your home. This should be, you should feel at home. This is our, church is more than just church. It's our second home, and they're very, very big on that. So he just basically said, yeah, I don't agree with you. I'm just like, okay. So I guess that's your way of saying, like, he's like, of course you're free to do what you want, but I don't agree with you. So it's a very soft way of saying I do not accept your resignation. So yeah, I'm still singing. I'm still there. Now the reason why is because it was all, again, it's politics. When you're in such a public position, and there, whether you like it or not, there are always going to be those who agree with you and those who don't. And at that time I wanted to quit because I didn't want to be the reason why someone is not enjoying the service, because they're like, oh my gosh, why is she up there, and they get focused on me and my political stance and everything, and I'm like, that shouldn't be why I'm here. If I'm here at all, it should really just to bring them closer to God, and as a singer, as part of the praise and worship team. So that was what that was.
Well, I do think that sometimes politics, a lot of people don't understand politics. That's why when there's like an asymmetric information where when one
And
not
they
everyone
think it's
knows.
all black
Not-
and white. They think
Exactly.
like, oh,
There
I
are
like
gray areas.
this, and therefore all of them would be like this. Where it's like, no, there are people that you will like and people you don't like in every single political party, in every single affiliation. There are those. So let's not be naive about it, you know?
Sure,
But yeah, so people.
Of course, and there are things from politics that we can apply it elsewhere.
Yeah.
For example, in church life or company life, whatever, there are things from church life that we can implement in the politics or a company.
Well, absolutely. You know what? You know how many times I hear, you shouldn't be bringing God into politics. Like you shouldn't be posting verses, from the Bible. You're not worthy of it, and it's so surprising. I just say, I mean, aren't we supposed to be bringing God into everything we do? I mean, God is supposed to be the center of our lives, and all God, especially through Jesus. I mean, what Jesus portrayed to us, it's all about love. It's all about love. It's all about, being there for people who are broken, who are lost, and loving. He never said like, I only love those who love me.
Yeah, Jesus does have a disclosure or like some hidden points there.
So
completely
I
unconditional.
I sometimes I just get really surprised at how exclusive some of these people are, how they're very, I'm sorry to say, but some of them are very close-minded about who we should be accepting into our midst, as though I'm like, I'm sorry, but I'm not taught that. I'm taught I'm supposed to love all. I'm taught I'm supposed to extend love to all, and I'm not saying I support everything other people are doing. That's not it at all. But as much as I can, it's to show what love is. And love means acceptance and understanding, and it doesn't mean support. It just means acceptance and understanding. And I think a lot of people still get. Sorry, we didn't mean to turn this into a a sermon session. No, it's just a little bit of sharing. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I mean, I don't agree if one says keep God out of it. No, you're supposed to be bringing God in everything. Yeah. That's the whole point of what faith is. You. Anyways.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, wonderfully put. Thank you.
I'm glad you agree, or we'd be in trouble.
Indonesia in 30 years, where do you see it?
30 years? That's a long
term.
You know
view.
what? You can't ask a political person that. You can't. You can't ask politicians.
Okay, I'll cut it down.
No, because politician. We see only like what's happening the next day. I mean, we can't even see what's gonna happen in like 17th of April when the election takes place. Like 30 years from, I don't know. It really depends on how we go in the next 5-10 years, honestly.
I agree. The balance between short term and long term is important, but there's a BCG report saying that Indonesia can be like a top 5 economy within the long run.
That's the thing. We can, but are we going to be?
What does it need? What is, from your perspective, what does it need? Like
there's this whole kind of global discussion and debate on globalization versus protectionism. And I learned this a couple of years ago when in Singapore. And you know what? Indonesia, as much as we're ready to be part of the global community, there are so many of our people who are not yet equipped. And I'm talking about, like, for example, very easy example, social media, internet. People think everybody should have internet. Everybody should have access to internet. But imagine I'm looking at this from the point of view where I'm an activist for anti-human trafficking. And I've seen what it can do, the harm it can bring to a community when you're not prepared mentally. I mean, physically you can learn it. You can access internet, fine. But if you don't know how to use it wisely, you have people who all of a sudden they have access to easy money. And I've heard stories from these activists and these people who have worked with survivors, of human trafficking, of how there are children who are being abused online, by their own parents, where they force their children to do things on camera and live stream it and to get money, and that's, for me, that's the horror of, like, so for example, I'm not saying technology is bad. I'm not saying internet is bad. What I'm saying is we need to ensure that our people are well prepared and well equipped to deal with the consequences of access to freedom of information. And we have issues with pornography. We have issues with child abuse material. I mean, in 2012, we were number one. I don't know what the latest numbers are, but we were number one in Asia for child abuse and material in one of the biggest social media platforms in the world, with 70,000 child abuse materials. And I'm talking about photos and videos of just abuse. And so, you wonder where our country is heading. I look at it from the social standpoint. I mean, we're only as strong as our weakest people. And at the moment, no matter how strong macro-wise economically, as long as we have those people who are just, they're not educated, they're poor, our system of education needs a complete reformation, because right now it's all about just learn the few pages and then answer the questions in the test the next day and then forget it. It's all about memorizing instead of research. And that's why we have hoaxes, we have false news, we have black campaigns, and it's so easy for people to eat them up because they are not used to research. So that's my view, and that's why I can't say what it's going to be like 30 years from now, because if we don't fix that, if we don't deal with that, with those issues, with our human resources, which are our biggest resources, our biggest strengths, it should be the people. If we don't pay more attention to them, then we will be in trouble. And so, it just means what will happen and continue to happen would be the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. And so we do need we need reformation of policies on that front.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's the activist in me.
Where can people find you on social media? What's your Instagram handle?
So you can find me on @Rahayu Saraswati, and you can, I guess, put it like already.
For sure.
At Rahayu Saraswati on Instagram. You can also find me on Facebook with Saraswati or Rahayu Saraswati Djojohadikusumo. Again, you're gonna need to write this down because not everybody knows how to spell my name, and it's very long. So you can understand what I had to go through during college and SATs, writing down my 15-letter last name. You can find me on those, but I'm not so active on. So what I do is I post on Instagram, and that's how I share to Twitter, and I share to Facebook. So, but you can also follow me on @Sahabat Rahayu Saraswati for any live feeds or new activities.
All right, 2 Instagram, guys. Don't forget.
Yeah, there's 2 Instagrams. One I handle myself, and the other one is to ensure that when I'm not holding, there's still. When I'm at events, usually it's Sahabat Rahayu Saraswati basically live streams it.
Awesome. Well, great, Sarah. Thank you so much for your time and to tell the world about your passion.
I'm sorry if it went so long, but I told you, be careful giving these mics to members of parliament.
Now, I wish you all the best for the 17th of April, and guys, vote for her.
Thank you very much. Thank you.